This is chess. The object of chess is for you to take your opponent's king. It's pretty simple. Alright, so maybe it's not quite so simple. Here's how it works. First we'll go through the pieces. These pieces, I'll call your pawns. They sit in the front row in front of all your other pieces. The way they move is they only move forward one space, or on their very first move, before you've ever touched them, they can move 2 spaces. They can attack other pieces that are diagonally 1 space ahead of them. So, for example, this pawn right here can attack other pieces that would be located here or here. The next piece we'll talk about is your rook. Looks like a castle. It's also commonly referred to as a castle. It can move in the cardinal directions, which is forwards and backwards, left and right, any number of spaces. The only way it can take pieces is by simply running into them. The next piece we'll talk about is your knight, also commonly referred to as a horse if you don't play chess. The way it moves, it's rather peculiar. It moves in an L-shaped direction. So it moves up and like this, or that way. It can also do that sideways, moving like this, or like that. Again, it can do that in any number of cardinal directions. It's the only piece that is actually allowed to jump over other pieces in play. Other pieces don't have the ability to do that. Alright, this piece is the bishop. It moves diagonally, forwards or backwards. So you can move forwards like that, or backwards like that. Really simple. The way it takes pieces is simply by running into them. Like that. Really easy. Really simple. So at this point you're thinking chess is like the easiest game in the world, right? You're right, it is. The next piece we're going to talk about is the queen. Alright, the queen is like a combination of a rook and a bishop. It can move in the cardinal directions, forwards and backwards, left and right, and it can also move diagonally. It can move any number of spaces it wants and take pretty much any piece it wants. Simple. The last piece we're going to talk about is the king. This is the most important piece in the game. You want to make sure your opponent doesn't take this. If they take it, you lose. End of story. The way the king moves is it moves just like the queen, forwards and backwards, left and right in any cardinal direction, and it can also move diagonally. But the catch is it can only move 1 space. So now we're going to go over some advanced moves in the game. We'll start with the pawn. The pawn, like we discussed before, can only take things that are in front of it diagonally. So this pawn can only take things that are here or here. Well, that's actually not entirely true. There is one other thing pawns can do as far as capturing is concerned. And it's called en passant. It's a French word. I really don't know what it means. It's really not important. What is important is what that move looks like and how it's done. It only works if a pawn has never moved and if a pawn is located diagonally across from it. So if black were to take this pawn using en passant, it would move like this. The piece is simply taken, just like that. The next advanced maneuver we're going to go through is called castling. Castling is when you take your king, and you put it here, and your rook, and put it there. That all happens in one move. There's some special rules you have to follow when castling. First off, the 2 pieces that would have been here can't be in the way, so the bishop and the knight have to be moved. Second, your king and your rook cannot be touched before you make this move. So if my king has made a move prior to castling, then I cannot castle with him. Or if this rook has made a move prior to wanting to castle, then I can't castle either. I'll have to castle on the queen's side. If I were to castle on the queen's side, it would look something like this. The reason you castle is because it's a very special defensive procedure. So, now that I've shown you that chess is this really simple and very, very easy game, I'm going to go ahead and show you the most complicated game ever played in chess. It took place in 1983 between Lance Darling and Richard Wood, and it was a professional game. Here are the moves. White opens by moving their pawn up 2 spaces. An interesting move. Black opens up, moving their pawn up in front of their king. One of the most common openings in chess. White then counters moving their bishop pawn up, leaving their king open, which their opponent exploits with their queen on the next move. And that is checkmate. Checkmate is a state in which the king is unable to move out of a threat without being taken. Here's why. The king is right here. It can only move one space in any direction. So the only space that he could move is here. But because the queen is still threatening him, that's why he's in checkmate, because he's unable to escape. That was the most complicated game ever played in chess history.